All right, welcome to a special edition of the MMA Fight Game podcast. I have a special guest who I've been chasing for a very long time. You might have first heard the name Dr. Craig Cypher of University of Rochester Medicine, Fitness, and Science when we were talking to Webster, New York's own Liam Anderson, who was at the time coming off or starting to come with a fight with LFA. Which, he won by a vicious head kick knockout that went viral. That actually got him a call into the UFC. I think he's fighting August 27th in Las Vegas for a contract on the Dana White Contender Series. Liam completely loves Dr. Craig Cypher. He's a sports psychologist specializing in performance enhancement, injury recovery, clinical issues as well. It's also a special time. I'm a big proponent of women, but this month is actually Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm actually kind of happy to have him on the call as well. Doc, I truly appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing great here. It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, no, I'm fired up for this because we were talking offline briefly. The first time I heard about like men, like psychology in sports, or specifically psychology or in mixed martial arts, was actually with Michael Bisping. He went into it before. He talked to his sports psychologist, and he kind of was on the record saying, this is a job. You're not going to hang out with your buddies. You're going to work, dress the part, dress in a suit like you're going to work. And then whatever you wear for your job is a different situation. So that was my first exposure into that. So tell me about the important, actually, first, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
What made you get into psychology? And if I misrepresent something, please stop me as
No,
well.
absolutely.
So
Yeah. So I'm a licensed psychologist, and I'm also what's called a certified mental performance consultant. So that's our national certification within sports psychology and sport performance. So I'm a licensed psychologist first and foremost, but then my specialty is in the mindset aspects for performance. So I always kind of say that, like, for a lot of my guys, they think their mindset is kind of like this on-off switch, right? Like either it's on, I'm confident, I feel great out there, or some days it feels like somebody turned out the lights, right? And so the key is that, like, those are skills that can be built. There's things that you're already doing on those switched on days that we just need to capture. We need to kind of put into routines. Kind of what you're saying is like, how am I presenting myself as I'm going to work that day or going to training that day? And then for those tough days, there's things that we can kind of build in terms of mindset, in terms of focus, things like breathing techniques, visualization and imagery, muscle relaxation, our own self-talk, what we say, that can kind of help us lock in and be where we need to be, in those big moments, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then how does that equate? Obviously you have sports psychologists for
Yeah.
all sports. Do you
Yeah.
concentrate on all sports, or do you you found your niche in the combat sports realm?
Right. So, it's certainly become, one of my specialties. I kind of joke is like I'm one of the only ones doing this in the Rochester area. So
Yeah.
I kind of joke that I'm kind of like the small town doc. So like I see all kinds of athletes, right? It might be, the women's lacrosse player to the MMA fighter to the track athlete, all the way through, So a lot of times it's like if there's somebody who really wants to work in their mindset, wants to work in their performance, kind of bring it on, right? Um, but part of my role is there's a special interest group. We kind of have a subgroup within our national organization, the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, that we just focus on combat sports. And so I'm one of the leads in terms of like bringing people together to kind of like share ideas, people who are working in that space. So it's definitely one of my specialties. I've worked with wrestlers for years and years, but really the last maybe like 3 or 4 years, as I think MMA is growing and MMA growing in our area in particular, that more and more I'm seeing more MMA athletes, in that specific area. So
Yeah, you talk about this area specifically.
yeah.
I've been on the record. Obviously, I run the Starched
Mhm.
Instagram page, Facebook page. We do the MMA Fight Game podcast. I work
Yeah.
with full contact promotions. which is a local amateur MMA around in Rochester, which we'll talk about a little later. But I've been on the record saying this area is set to burst with athletes. I mean, obviously, we have Liam, who's out in Las Vegas right now doing his media, his interviews for the Dana White Contender Series for August. You have Jonathan Piersma from Synthesis Martial Arts, who's on the verge of getting the call. You have Jacob Bone, you have Jake Hickson-Baugh, you have Vinny Iannuzzo, you have Mason Lewis, who is destined to be a world champion. So this area, and then there's some ladies. I'm trying to grow the ladies as well. The ladies, like Amanda Basterk, Rachel Vincent, Joan Nelson. There's a bunch of ladies, and then there's the growth and explosion of women's wrestling in athletics. This area, like you're hitting a niche right now because this area, Dana White, Las Vegas, they're all going to know about this area soon. So the potential for the services that you offer is tremendous. What are, like, real quick, what are some of the benefits for like mixed martial artists or combat sports athletes in general working with you? What would they get out of that?
And I especially think about like the mindset of it where like you are alone, in that, in that cage, in that ring, right? So really, like, as a combat sports athlete, you don't leave your training to chance in terms of your skills and like being, kind of that Swiss Army knife, being able to kind of, be an expert within all those different areas. You like your weight cut to chance, right? We're not leaving our nutrition and our hydration within that to chance. So like, why are we leaving our mindset to chance, right? Like that can be built in the same way that you're building your strength and conditioning, all these other pieces. And like there's these building blocks that we can kind of put in place for that, right?
Yeah, I mean that's really good. Out of everyone that you work with, I have some questions that I prepared. Out of everyone that you work with, are there like, I'm not looking for specifics, as I respect the doctor and privilege. Out of everyone that you work with, just a generalized statement, are there any common struggles that a majority of people have?
Yeah, like one thing that I really kind of get guys focused on, and there's a guy, Gene Zanetti does a lot of work in terms of wrestling and wrestling mindset, that I kind of borrow and adapt, and talking about kind of having a predator mindset, right? And not just like, like I'm the toughest, I'm the baddest, kind of thing, but like if we think about true predators, right? It's eyes in front, likes to hunt, right? So like, like you need to be focused on the 6 feet in front of me, right? Like, and that's what I need to focus on. I need to focus on, this opponent. What am I doing? What's my game plan, right? And predators, right? Like if the rabbit gets away, they don't sit there and like, sulk and kind of grab onto, the little bit of fur that they got and be like, oh, I should have had that chance, should have done that. No, we need to be focused on the next hunt, the next opportunity, right? And so, the difference between that predator mindset and then what we call prey mindset, right? Like eyes on the side, likes to hide. Am I too focused on what's this person think? What are these expectations, right? Like a lot of my fighters kind of carry the weight of like all these expectations, outside of, the cage that weigh on them, right? Like, what's, you're on your own. There's no like dedicated pathway to what you want to do, right? Like some of my sports, like you go to college for it, and then there's a pro pathway, and you kind of go through this pathway. With this, you're having to like cook your own dinner all the time, right? Like you have to kind of promote yourself as a brand. You have to be able to manage in terms of like, promoting yourself, working with promoters, working with matchmakers, all those things you have to do. That's kind of DIY with this. And we can't get too caught up in those things when the time comes to just kind of go out there and show out and go fight, right? And so a lot of it is like, how do we set those things that need to be on the side? Who's this guy and where's he from and what's his ranking, and all that stuff doesn't matter as much as, my mindset, my game plan, what am I working with in terms of putting that in action, right now in the 6 feet in front of me, right?
Yeah. And then, going to that, is there anything that, people do well generally as well when you've talked to people and you've helped them? Is there anything that there's a common trait that they do well? Like we talked about, they don't do well and then they do well.
And I think with I think with MMA fighters, they realize that it's a progression, right? Like they know that with their skills in different areas in terms of like BJJ or my wrestling, my takedown defense, they know that it takes time and it takes work and it takes repetition. And so they're not afraid to put in the work, right? Like, I always kind of say, like, I don't have a magic wand, right? It's not like, oh, bing, you have a great mindset. It's like, we're going to work for this 45 minutes to an hour, and then you need to take some of these things and then go put them in action, right? And I think that's what I see with what I love about working with fighters, right? Is that like, they're experimenting with the stuff that we work on, whether it's a breathing technique, whether it's, their self-talk, what are the words I'm going to say to myself. They're going to go take that into sparring and then to be like, all right, doc, here's where it works, here's where it's helpful. And so what I see them really do well is like take the stuff, put it in action. And how do we move from like, all right, first we're learning it, then, then we're working it, then we own it. Right. And I think that's what I see really, in terms of how fighters take this stuff on when they're ready to step into, my office and use the stuff that we use.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of like a breathing technique for a situation?
Absolutely. So, I think, we can have, different breathing techniques either to kind of like, we always kind of think about breathing in terms of calming us down, but we can also kind of utilize our breathing to kind of get hyped up, right? Like if we need to kind of get fired up, whether that's a lot of weight on the bar in my strength and conditioning, or, I need to rev up for, this moment. And so, so we can actually, kind of breathe in for 5 seconds. So in slowly, in 2, 3, 4, 5, and then rush that air out really quick. And if we do that in sets of threes, in 2, 3, 4, 5, out quick, in 2, 3, 4, 5, out quick, 2, 4, 5, out quick, we can kind of get that rev up, right? Sometimes the biggest issue, especially on a fight night, is you have all this time, right? So your energy is going to go really up. You're going to be pacing and really fired up. There's be times when your legs kind of feel dead and you're kind of revved down because I've been waiting so long, right? And so we can actually manage that energy. We can kind of be able to kind of avoid the big high highs, the big low lows, so that your energy is where we need it to be when you step in, right?
Yeah, that's really good. I keep getting distracted, so I'm going to ask you, what's the best book behind you right there?
So the best book behind me.
Yeah.
Oh man. So there is a great book that I love. An author, and his name is Trevor Moawad, passed away a couple of years ago. It's a book called "It Takes What It Takes," and so what Trevor talks about that I love is talking about neutral thinking, right? So we think about sometimes we need to be super positive, but we may not get to positive, and we know we don't want to be negative, right? So neutral is just about what are the small steps in my control, action focused, right? And I work a lot with guys, especially in terms of how do we translate the fight plan into your own self-talk, right?
Yeah.
So just being simple, right? Just be relentless, smash them up against the cage, and like I'm just going to focus on those two things: relentless, smash them up against the cage, relentless, smash. And those aren't necessarily like, I'm the best, I'm the baddest, everything's going to go great and perfect, right? It's just, what do I need to be in this moment, right? And so that's my favorite book there in terms of like that with Trevor Moawad. It's fantastic.
Yeah, generally people that I talk to or I look at on like Instagram, I always look at what's in the background with the books and
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
Always pick their brain. So it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. What is a couple? Is there a Women's Mental Health Awareness Month as well? Do you know?
There is as well. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, but it's definitely another dedicated time as well.
Yeah, when we were talking, actually, the heavyweight champion of UFC, Jon Jones, who's actually from Rochester, New York, might I add.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he had mentioned it. Is there anything that you can tell the gentlemen that watch or hear us talk? Is there any like one thing that you can tell them that would be important during this month?
Absolutely. I think, the one thing is like, I see a lot of guys who are really excellent in terms of like their dedication to training, really excellent in terms of, the work they put in, but also needing to be excellent in terms of your recovery, right?
That's good.
We need to be excellent in terms of our sleep, right? And excellent in terms of being able to be like, all right, if I, have a lower key day that isn't, just focused on training, just focused on strength and conditioning, that I can use that time to meditate, to breathe, and that's going to refuel me body, mind, soul in a way that I can be even better the next day, right? So I think, being focused on excellent at recovery is a huge piece in terms of, just taking care of yourself through this. And the guys that, really kind of choose this pathway, they're sacrificing a lot, to kind of really, be excellent and put in the work and everything they need to do. And so they're often very excellent at putting in the work, not always excellent at recovery. So I want them to be excellent at recovery too.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now talk to me. So I kind of did some stalking with you and University of Rochester Medicine, Fitness and Science.
Yep.
Obviously, you've seen what the UFC and Dana White have done with the Performance Institute.
Yep.
Do you think it's potentially maybe like a scaled down version of what you guys offer here that in Nevada?
Absolutely. We, kind of match up, I feel like I would put our facility up against, any facility that's out there, right? In terms of what we have strength and conditioning wise, we have the same, laser timing, force plate stuff that you would see at the Performance Institute. The same laser timing that they use for the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, we have here. We have a full motion lab. We have a biomechanics researcher, Dr. Ram Hadass. They have motion capture cameras, set so we could see guys, their movement patterns, that kind of stuff with their fighting. We can track that in terms of how their body's moving. They used to have that with the kind of like the EA Sports games, kind of the Madden and the UFC game where they have the stickers. Now it's complete. Now the tech we have completely markerless. You just walk in there, you move like an athlete. We see how you move, and we can kind of sit there and look at all right, are there things we can do to make you more efficient, within that. We have a registered dietitian, Holly Gilligan. She works with fighters, with wrestlers, works with them on how do you go about your weight cut in a way that's sensible. How do you, rehydrate afterwards, refuel afterwards, so we have strength and conditioning, nutrition, mindset, all in one, what you'd have at the highest levels. Very similar, Micah Schnurstein. I don't know if you know who Mike is, but he's the embedded, mindset coach. He's actually a licensed social worker, but he's the embedded mindset coach at the UFC Performance Institute. So we have the same, kind of stuff that we have here in little old Rochester, right? We have it, and it's open to all, right? You could be a 12-year-old from, from the suburbs. You could be, a pro fighter like Liam. We have those facilities for you. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to be at that Division I level at the IMG Academy down in Florida, UFC Performance Institute. We have those facilities for anybody in our area, which is democratizing this approach, right? Democratizing these services for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the University of Rochester, for people who don't know, is the biggest hospital in the area, cutting on the edge of everything from sports medicine, fitness, and science. Absolutely. To cutting edge orthopedics and all that stuff. So it's definitely big time there. Yeah. Now over at the how does an athlete get involved? Is it covered by insurance, or can they come pay a monthly fee, or is it per visit if they want to talk to you or work with some of the coaches? How is that all intertwined?
Yeah, so the on the strength and conditioning nutrition side, so those are things that kind of have are paying for those services and those kind of things. We do have different packages that we put together, so you can always kind of reach out to us, and everything from if you want to do 2 days a week to unlimited times a week, in terms of the strength and conditioning side. For me on my side, there's kind of a split, right? So there's if it's just about kind of mindset performance, for those kind of things, people who come see me for that mindset performance, that's kind of private pay, and we can kind of talk about what that looks like. But I also have the benefit as a licensed psychologist, being able to kind of help and get things through insurance, right? So certainly if it's you're dealing with an injury and dealing with psychological aspects of an injury, if you're dealing with other stressors that are going on, right? We're talking about men's mental health. If you kind of have a mental health issue, whether you're dealing with stress and anxiety, whether you're dealing with depressed mood, ADHD, that kind of stuff, that can all go through insurance in terms of what we have. And so we take with it being U of R, a large major medical center, we take, most all insurances. If we don't, we can get a relationship with them going to make that happen. Right. Wow. So I think that's the other part, is that that's, these services are then open to people who are of need, and we can go through insurance and make that happen for folks, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great, because you see a lot. Add a couple more questions. Like
Yeah.
when you work with an athlete, you know, is there a difference in the mental? Like, say they lose a fight because they got injured, or they have a huge fight, they get injured, or say they get submitted, or say they get knocked out. Is there a difference in the approach of what you talk to them about, or is it kind of the same and then you kind of tweak it per client?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a difference, I think, with combat sport athletes where it's like you are, you are accepting a relationship with pain to some degree, right? Like you are accepting, you are accepting inflicting pain, you're accepting the infliction of pain. Like there's something that you're kind of coming down to. So being able to kind of figure out, again, what's injured versus, what's hurt, and like how do we make sure that I'm paying attention to that. There's a very, kind of specific, unique experience to that that they're going through, and you are putting your body, your head, your safety on the line in terms of what you're doing. So that you have to be of a good mindset to be able to kind of take that risk, right? And there's absolutely 100% a mental part to that that is unique to combat sports, unique to those athletes stepping in, right?
Yeah. Dana White's been on the record saying, and they have a new thing out on Roku, I think it's called Fighting, and it's behind. But here's the thing: you put four sections of the world together, and you have four different sports, and then you have fighting in one corner. He says, and I'm paraphrasing this. He goes, everybody will gravitate towards the fighting because everybody understands fighting and they all like it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's everybody likes to fight. Everybody will stop and watch the fight. The fights in Las Vegas are absolutely crazy. I've been to many, and it's just a crazy time. Now, my last question in terms of specifics here is how do you prepare an athlete in camp versus not in camp? Is there a difference in approach there?
Absolutely. Right. So we really need to, kind of think about, like, as we're talking about camp, really kind of nailing down on, okay, what's the fight plan that you've broken down, for yourself with your coach? How have you scouted that out? Right.
Yeah.
And then how do we fit, kind of those mindset skills that we've been working specifically to that fight plan and your preparation all the way through, right? So what does that lead you look like in terms of, your sparring, so if we have a fight plan in terms of, like, as that example of, like, okay, I'm gonna be relentless, I'm gonna smash them up against the cage, right? We want to think about what kind of predator do you need to eat. There's different kinds of predators. Some guys need to be bears, right? They're just going to go and race in and charge and do that. Some need to be hawks. They need to circle, and then go attack, right? So we talk about what type of predator do you need to be for this opponent, right? And then how do we build in the mindset skills that fit that fight plan, fit how you need to approach this, and how does everything else then supplement that, right? How does your visualization and imagery push you towards that fight plan mentally? Your breathing techniques, your muscle relaxation, how you regulate your energy up, down, all those things. What does your own self-talk need to be, in your sparring versus, on that fight night? And so we work around what's that fight plan that they're seeing, what they're seeing for their path to victory, and then how do the mindset parts all support that? And so it's very specific to camp in that way.
Yeah. And just another question that I had, because I'm going to pick your brain. I'm going to pick your brain here. So let me tell you, somebody like Liam Ashton from Webster, New York, is there a difference in preparation? Say he's fighting on the regional circuit, say at a 2,000 seat venue in Niagara Falls, versus going to the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, sold out, ruckus crowd that's just bonkers. Do you touch on that, and like what's that like?
Absolutely, right? Because you have to, have this balance, right? At some level, things don't necessarily change, right? Like the fight is the fight. The opponents, the eyes in front, likes to hunt aspects of that predator mentality, my mindset, that stays the same. But you have to be able to kind of think about, all right, how am I going to embrace the energy and the specialness of that moment as well, right? Like, how do we, we're going to have some of that butterflies that go in that, and if we understand that's just energy, Let's soak that up. Let's use that, right? Let's take that in. And you see that especially, with fighters that I work with as they're, the stakes are getting higher, they're getting further along in the card, right? Like all those kind of opportunities, that, we want to continue to kind of embrace that. And especially, it is a big leap kind of going from, being able to kind of get that opportunity, for, an LFA circuit, or, Cage Titans kind of thing, but like then moving on to, the big options of, Bellator and UFC and those kind of things, right? And so we need to kind of keep the things that are the same, right? And dial in on that, but also like, how do we embrace the bigness of it, the excitement of it?
Yeah. And then, before we wrap it up and we talk about, the amateur fights this weekend or next weekend with Full Contact, what are 3 tips? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Absolutely.
3 tips that you can give to any combat sports athlete specifically, or if it translates to other sports as well, I'm good with that as well. What are 3 tips?
Okay. So 3 tips, I would start out with thinking about, what type of predator fits your style, right? So that predator mindset, that eyes in front, likes to hunt, do I need to be, as I approach sparring, as I approach, a match, what's the energy level that I need to be that fits with my style and how I approach, right? And how do I dial in on that? And so that part is kind of key. I think the other part, I love that idea of neutral thinking, right? So how do I have self-talk? If we're going to be positive, right? If just like, oh, I'm going to crush this guy, I got it, that's good. I love that. I'm always down with being positive, right? But like, we know we don't want to be negative, right? If those doubts come up, it's time to kind of get to neutral, right? Just be quick on my feet, strike fast, strike hard, those kind of things that are just like simple, neutral, small steps in my control, focus in on that, right? And then I think, like if you can master your breath, you can master your breathing, you're going to master your energy level. You master your energy level, you're going to be able to kind of manage those big moments, right? We've seen guys who, like there's too hyped in that first round. They're trying to kind of go for every haymaker and every option, and they get to a fight that's a little bit more of a dog fight, and second round, third round, they're gassed, right? And so we need to be able to kind of manage that energy all the way through. And if you can focus in on that breathing, especially everything in the lead up to that fight, if we need to kind of settle that breathing down, in for 5 seconds, out for 6 seconds, slowing down that exhale is gonna relax you, settle you down. If we need to hype up, in for 5, out quickly, right? So master your breath, right? Neutral thinking, predator mindset.
Yeah, that's really, really good stuff. I nerd out about this type of stuff. When Liam brought it up, I nerded out when we talked to him, and then with Michael Bisbing, and then we were talking offline. You had some things about Michael Chandler as well. Michael Chandler, let's preference this. I don't know if that fight's gonna happen in Las Vegas.
That's the question, right? Like that's the question right now.
There's a lot of peaks and valleys.
Yes.
But Dana White's been on the record for Dana White's been on the record for like mental warfare. Muhammad Ali, Conor McGregor, and everybody else is down here. So that fight might not go off. Talk to me about what you were telling me about Michael Chandler, and talk to me like now you might not know this, but talk to me about how you would approach if you were his doctor and he's going through all these peaks and valleys and all this mental bullshit Conor McGregor is throwing out to him. Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I think, that, we talked about that because Michael Chandler actually has been really open about his work with, sports psychologists, with, mindset coaches, that kind of stuff, right? Like he's another guy who's saying like, this is part of how I train, part of how I manage that, right? And it speaks to, there's kind of this level of intrigue, a level of uncertainty that we need to have, right? And if you are only going to be focused on the uncertainty, like, is this guy going to make weight? Is it going to happen? That kind of stuff. Every percentage of your focus and energy that you put to that is energy that's not going to your training, right? So all the energy you're putting on stuff that is out of your control, we really, really need to define. I talk a lot about controlling the controllables, right? What's in my control, what's not in my control, And if I can just kind of dial in on the things that are controllable for me, like that part is huge, right? And I think, people who are already in that game, I'm sure Michael Chandler is doing that, right? Like he's keeping his approach the same, his preparation the same. He's still kind of doing it, and like, letting kind of everything else settle however it's going to settle, and just kind of continuing to dial in on his preparation, right? And like that's what we need to do. You can control how you prepare, your effort, your attitude, and then how do you just respond to everything else, right? And like that's about it, right?
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. I don't know if that fight's gonna go off, but I mean,
Yeah,
he's calm, cool, and collected, not losing his
yeah,
cool. He's like, hey,
absolutely. Yeah.
so we have a big event,
Mhm.
June 22nd, full contact promotions. You had DM me earlier. You got
Yeah.
some breaking news
Yes.
for me on this call, because my association. I'm with Full Contact Promotions. I run the
Yeah.
social media. I also do all the in-ring interviews
Mhm.
as well. I also am now working on the matchmaking side. But
Mhm.
tell me your breaking news.
So yeah, so breaking news. So UR Medicine Fitness Science is proud and excited to be a sponsor, for our next event coming up. So we are so excited to kind of partner with you, be able to kind of get the word out of the stuff that we're doing, and be able to support grassroots MMA in our area, right? Like how exciting is that part? You talk about how it's really kind of popping off in really fantastic ways, and we're excited to support that.
Yeah, we're definitely excited to have you.
Yeah.
For the athletes and the fans watching, University of Rochester Medicine and Fitness Science. They will
Mhm.
have a table. The doc,
Mhm.
the strength and conditioning staff, they will be out there.
Yeah.
We're also working on a thing where any of the athletes, specifically the athletes that compete on that night's card,
Mhm.
we're gonna try to work something out with the University of Rochester to give you
Mhm.
guys some benefit to see what they offer. I
Mhm.
strongly recommend it.
Yeah.
Getting with the professionals, because if you don't nerd out like what the UFC is doing and what Dr. Cypher said,
Yeah.
that the U of R has what they have in Nevada, that's impressive stuff. And that's just going to take your game to a whole nother level. And you can
Mhm.
already see what that's doing for Liam Anderson, who's competing for a UFC contract in a couple of months. So
Mhm.
that's massive. The doc and the staff is going to be at the pre-fighter meetings. We're going to talk to them. We're going to get faces with them. And if you want to take your game to the next level, or you have aspirations to get to
Mhm.
that next level, you got to talk to Doc and the staff. They are very open on Instagram and social media and whatnot. I can put a link up on all our pages to get with these guys. But if you have something similar to what's out in Nevada here in Rochester, New York, um, that's the way. Doc's going to be sitting cage side with us. They're going to be sponsoring the main event, so you're going to see their name. You're going to see a lot of their stuff out on June 22nd at the Holiday Inn in downtown Rochester. Doc, I truly appreciate your time. I don't think this is going to be the first or the last time that I speak with you.
Absolutely.
I truly appreciate the time on a Tuesday night
Mhm.
as well. And you're going to be in for a treat at these local amateur fights because, like I said, Rochester, Western New York, Central New York, we're ready to make a push. And if you
Yeah.
guys, lock arms with us and everything, we're going to be seeing a lot of each other. So I love it.
Absolutely.
I truly appreciate the time. Just sit tight, okay?
Absolutely. Like appreciate, it's absolutely my pleasure, and like appreciate you putting this emphasis on the mindset game, right? Because it is a huge part of it, and obviously I'm excited to talk about it. So
Yeah, and anytime, the mindset thing is a big part of the formula to be
Mhm.
a successful world champion. And I truly think there's going to be some world champions coming out of this area for sure.
So,
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 all
okay.
right, sit tight, Doc.